The experimental steps include before, during and after. Sample weighing. Recommended sample weights are as follows. Prepare samples in advance. Fruits and vegetables are homogenized. Tea, spices, oil crops, dried vegetables are crushed and sieved through 35 mesh. Chinese herbal medicine is crushed and sieved through 335 mesh. Mesh sieving for dried samples can increase pesticide residues recovery rate, without impact on the instrument operation. Note: samples featured with high fat, easy to foam, and low density need to be weighed separately. The experimental programs are set separately. Do not perform different experiments together for different kinds of samples. Caps unable to be screwed tightly should be replaced in time to avoid leakage in the subsequent vortex and oscillation process. Caps should not be twisted crooked, and different brands of caps should not be mixed. Placing sample tubes. For instrument without ice bath module, the sample tube rack can be pulled out. After placing tubes, put the rack back and snap it into place correctly. Instrument with ice bath module can only be put sample tubes in situ. Put sample tubes from left to right, front to back. The sample tube quantity must be a multiple of 4. If sample tubes are insufficient, please complete with blank tubes. Mark on the tube cap. If you mark on tube body, the markings will wear off during tests. Place the extraction solvent and standing solution. Open the cabinet door and place sufficient extraction solvent and standing solution. Insert the clear catheter labeled solvent and standing solution into the bottom of the container. Note: experiments such as fruits and vegetables that do not require standing solution, the standing solution pipeline must also have water in it, otherwise the instrument will alarm and stop. Adding extraction salt. Recommended ratios are as follows. Rotate to remove the stirrer from the top of the mechanism, then place it in empty space. Pull out the salt feeding drive from the back. You may first cock one end and then pull out the other end. Put the pre-mixed salt into the salt tank. Put back the salt tank and close the rotary stirrer. Turn the salt tank over twice to keep the salt powder loose. Fit the salt filler drive by aligning the positioning holes of the salt tank with the feet. Emptying. Replace solvents when using the instrument for the first time. The instrument needs to be emptied when liquids are insufficient and air bubbles exists. Open software, click Reset. After reset, click Manual, Solvent or Standing Solution, and Empty. A stable continuous liquid outflow means emptying is complete. Extraction salt calibration. Take a clean container. First put it on the balance for tare. Place it under the salt tank nozzle. Open software. Click Manual, Calibration, and Manual Salt Feeding. A pre-mixed salt will drop from the salt tank into the container. Weigh the falling salt and record the data. Compare the amount of salt to the target quantity. When the target quantity is less than weighed quantity, rotate the knob to the side of larger numbers, 1/2 cell at a time. Click Manual Salt Feeding again. Stop calibration till the weighed quantity equals to the target quantity. Place purified tubes and finished tubes. The purified tube rack locates between the sample tube rack and the finished tube rack. Purified tubes should be placed correspondingly to the sample tubes. If you do not have proper purified tubes, put purified material into designated 15 ml tubes before test. The finished tube rack is on the right. Place the designated 15 ml tubes in the finished tube rack, and place them in the same position correspondingly to the samples. Not necessary to put tubes here if no further nitrogen blow on GCMS. Place pipette tips. Remove the red magnet first. 1 ml tips with holder are placed on the rack. 5 ml tips are added one by one. 1 ml tips with convex side should face left. Place ceramic homogenizers. Place 15 ml homogenizers in the homogenizer turntable, which has specifications of single layer and double layer. The double layer turntable can hold 2 homogenizers in the same hole. Check before the experiment. 1. Check whether test tubes left over in the centrifuge from the last experiment. Firstly, click Manual in the software, click Open Centrifuge lid. After the centrifuge lid is opened, turn the centrifuge rotor manually, remove the remaining tubes, and click Close Centrifuge lid. Check whether tube caps are twisted screwed. Observe whether sample tubes, purified tubes and finished tubes are placed horizontally. Manually correct the twisted screwed caps and put tubes back. Three. Check whether the tips are sufficient. Pipette tips may be clogged in the experiment, so at least 10 extra tips should be placed. Four. Check whether the test tube rack is placed properly. Correct it in right place before starting test. 5. Check whether the solvents are sufficient, including extraction salt, acetonitrile, and standing solution. Start the experiment. 1. Program Settings. Click Program Settings New Program. At this moment, the name of the experimental program is blank. Click on the blank, enter your program name, click Save, and then click on plus sign below. In the backspace, select the experimental steps to be performed. Click plus sign again to select next experimental step. After setting up all steps, click Save. At this moment there is a prompt. Program name is repeated whether to overwrite the original one. Click OK to save the program, and then use it again directly from historical experimental programs. Built-in experimental programs could fit for most experiments. 2. Sample number setting. Click Program Settings. Retrieve historical experimental program. Click on Tube Station. A sample quantity interface will pop up. The upper left corner will display the number of samples. Click on plus or minus sign to adjust the number. After the number of samples set by the software corresponding to the actual number of samples, click red cross to exit. Click Save in Program Interface. At this moment there is a prompt. Program name is repeated whether to overwrite the original one. Click OK to save. Click Set as Current Experimental Program. There is a prompt. Whether to take tips from 0 position. Click Yes. The instrument will collect supernatant from the initial position of the tips one by one. Click No. The instrument will collect from the first of the remaining tips of last experiment. Then click Exit. Three. Reset and start experiment. Click Reset. Close the sliding door of the instrument. When the Start button turns from gray to bright, it means reset and self-test are completed. Click Start. If you have to take out tubes from the running instrument, click Stop. Open the sliding door to take out tubes, then continue. End of the experiment. 1. Take away the finished tubes. Purified tubes and sample tubes. Do harmless treatment to the used test tubes. Two. Take away the tips. Take away the discarded tips inside cabinet for harmless disposal. 3. Remove the waste liquid collection cup. Dispose the waste liquid and put it back into the collection cup. 4. Clean the instrument. Remove the salt tank. Suck out the dust and salt powder by a vacuum cleaner. Note: the groove of capping module must be cleaned after each experiment, otherwise sensor touch error will occur. If the instrument will not be used for a long period, clear the salt tank to prevent salt inside moisture caking. Clean tank nozzle by brush and vacuum cleaner. Five. Shut down the computer. Exit the software. Shut down the computer. 6. Power off the instrument. Power off the instrument by pressing switch on the right side of the instrument. 7. Power off the air pump. If the instrument will not be used for a long period, press the red button to turn it off after the motor stopped working.